All right. And today we have joining us Matt Woods from the Organic Crop Exchange and Willie Hughes, who's an organic farmer in southern Wisconsin. And he'll talk a little bit about his operation and what he does with respect to markets. But they're both going to talk with us today about organic markets, just an update on some of the dynamics we're seeing in the markets. Matt's going to introduce a platform that he's involved with, and Willie's going to talk from his perspective as a farmer as well. So Matt, are you going to start first?
Yeah, so I can start first. Like Aaron said, my name is Matt Woods with the Organic Crop Exchange. The company is a subsidiary of the DeLong company, so we are associated with them. They're the ones funding it all, so we have pretty good backing with it. And I guess just to get started with a general overview of the market kind of stuff that we've been seeing. I know everybody kind of wants to know, or everybody's been kind of wanting to know what's going on with the soybean market, and especially with the issues that we had with India, stuff like that. I know they just made some rulings on that, and in terms of tariffs, whenever they're going to start for imported meal from India, they said they can see stuff as high as potentially 260%, 66% tariffs on some of the stuff that they're bringing in. And so with the reduced imports from India, and now also, the Russia-Ukraine war that's been going on with some issues getting some exports from the Black Sea area, it's not going to be surprising if we still continue to see these soybean prices hang around where they've been, in $35, even $38 range, just because the U.S. production isn't going to meet the demand for this coming year. Like the U.S. production just isn't there yet, and getting sources from these other countries for imports, we're going to have to start sourcing more from different countries, and whether or not that'll cover the gap, that's some stuff that what kind of remains to be seen. We'll have to wait and see what happens going into this year for stuff like that. Got a question here for wheat and oats. For wheat, it would, for what we've been seeing, especially with the drought issues that they've been having out there for where they're growing, and the lack of consistent moisture out there, it'll be, I would expect to see some bump in prices here for oats, especially. We've had, so on our platform, we've had some stuff move through our platform that we have here, around $7.50 a bushel. Those were just for some feed grade oats, but we've also had some other guys that have sold some stuff up to Canada that I've talked to that have, sold some stuff in the $8 to $9 range, and people were kind of hanging on for some of those higher prices. And for peas, we haven't had much trade to the in regards to peas trade to the platform yet. Willie, I don't know if you have any inputs on the peas and oats and wheat as well, the beans.
Well, sure. I guess just a quick introduction. My name is Willie Hughes with Hughes Farms. We farm conventional non-GMO and certified organic acres down here in Janesville, and we've kind of, I guess, made our way in the world by doing a lot of value added and specialty crops. So we're doing food grade, seed grade, specialty row crops, small grains, and so to Jeff's question in the chat is what's going on in the Kernza market: wheat, oats, dry peas, and beans. Don't we need some diversity in the markets? I think, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that sentiment. From just going to speak personally here, and another thing that I could, maybe should say is that I personally don't have any direct affiliation with OCE. I'm just a grower. I'm in Rock County, and I've got some some great established relationships with the DeLong company, and our family has worked with them for 2 or 3 generations now. So when they said that they had an organic marketing platform, I think I was an easy target, to come and take a look at the platform and check it out and give some feedback on usability and just kind of what a grower's perspective would be. But back to the questions on what's going on with the Kernza market, I could maybe start there. Kernza is it's a really shallow market still. It's very nascent. It's very early in its commercialization. Its breeding and its development has been a couple decades in the making, but really its release onto the everyday average consumer's food plate is still very much early stages. It just takes a lot of research and development and a lot of, frankly, confidence from processors and food manufacturers to feel that they can consistently get quality and quantity enough in order to justify investment in the equipment and into the onboarding of their staff. And you can imagine if you had a mill and you were set to mill wheat flour and oats and stuff. Kernza, it is a small grain, but it's different, and there's a learning curve to that. You have to modify your equipment. You need new equipment. You need dehullers and things like that. So it's a work in progress. I am a member of a grower-led cooperative effort called Perennial Promise Growers Cooperative, and we are a grower-led effort to advance commercialization of Kernza. We've seen, just going to do really rough math here, but we've moved maybe 80,000 pounds of Kernza this year out of an inventory, across farms, mostly in Minnesota, of somewhere in the 400 to 500,000 pounds. So we're, maybe about 20% sold. But it's a long drawn out process to send samples and get that analyzed and get it back and aggregate lots. And, a lot of growers are in small 20, 30 acre patches because folks just haven't really latched onto the idea of Kernza yet. And we don't really know how to grow it at a big scale. And there's just a big learning curve. So that one's a very much speculative, very much work in progress, very shallow market. I don't do many dry peas and like edible beans personally, but I would say that if protein is up, you should see a higher price in those. I think it's fairly safe to say. We've seen with sunflowers, which in my mind, or the way I look at it, is a good substitute in the rotation for soybeans. We're seeing some interesting things there, especially when you factor in that Ukraine has been historically such a huge sunflower exporter for a lot of U.S. domestic oil uses or for consumption. I spoke with a processor the other day who is looking for like six barrels of organic sunflower oil a month, and they can't find it because supply is so tight. So I would expect those prices to be high. I don't have too much on it. On the wheat and the oats, I thought I hit a home run planting organic soft red winter wheat this winter, and I tried to price some out kind of a couple weeks back when conventional wheat was at its all-time highs, and it just seems like it can be frustrating for me personally that the organic markets seem to follow the conventional markets only when it's on the way down. And I have not really seen a lot of indication that the organic soft red winter wheat market is going to really benefit that much or proportionally as much as I feel it should from the conventional, Kansas City wheat or something like that. But I think what I've been told, or the reason for that was just that it's a small market, and there's only so much that the producers and millers and stuff can chew through, and so it seems like it kind of is what it is. I'm still doing some price discovery, and I hope to have some probably listed on the OCE, just to again use that tool as a price discovery model. But to Jeff's question, do we need some diversity in the markets? I would think so. Yes.
I just
Yeah.
added a chat too with respect to diversified markets. Maybe you guys can talk about this too. Willie, you just mentioned, I've been hearing too that it's sunflower, just general oil seeds. The demand is increasing, and part of that is definitely due to the situation in Ukraine. So sunflowers, winter canola, we're going to be trying trials of both of those in Wisconsin. We have kind of the market dynamic, but also the shipping and trucking dynamic, which can be a bottleneck as well. And where the location, these processing facilities, I think strategically, as we grow domestic supply, it'd be great to look at how can we invest and support some of this infrastructure so that we're not having to ship Midwest product to the Southeast or the plains. So it's just kind of a catch-22 sometimes with market opportunity and what the farmer can do versus where there's the infrastructure and where it makes most sense with respect to shipping, especially with shipping as it is right now. Shipping partial loads just doesn't make sense, or it's impossible. Matt, have you been seeing some of those dynamics with oil seeds?
Yeah, I mean, just in general, we've been seeing a pretty big increase in demand for the oil seeds, which I think is one of the problems too, with especially for the bean market, just driving the prices up, because right now the domestic organic production just isn't there, and trying to get everything else in, it's trying to source the rest of that demand from outside countries, and so it's a matter of can we get enough in from other countries to cover the rest of that demand.
I would also maybe just add, and I'm kind of being a contrarian here a little bit. That's sort of my nature maybe, but there's kind of two things for me drive some of my marketing decisions, and that would be greed and fear. And I feel like in the past couple of months, maybe I've trended more towards the greed side, where it seems like, especially on some of our non-GMO stuff, that's something that you can sell on the futures market. You sell some, and then 2 weeks later it rallies a crazy amount, and then it just seems to be going up and up and up and up and up. And the instinct definitely seems to be that if everybody who just kind of sits and waits this out seems to be doing the right thing, or constantly being rewarded for that. But there are a lot of other factors, and things can really change in a hurry. And one of the things that is kind of on my mind, especially with the soybean market and where it stands, is that a lot of corn and bean acres go to feed. And when we look at sort of these black swan events, no pun intended, for the avian flu, there's a pretty significant amount of demand for organic feed that could go away pretty quickly if some of the situation with the avian flu gets out of control. So I don't know. I don't have the right answer. I mean, I'm not gonna by any stretch of the imagination have to pretend at any manner that I have any clue as to where it's all going to go. But I think that the thing that I always try to come back to personally is just to know my cost of production. And when I feel like I have a good opportunity to make money and be profitable, and be relatively competitive, and I constantly try to deny myself that greedy instinct to just wait and hope for more money, and focus more on what does it take me to actually come away from this year being able to support myself and make a good living for myself. And if I can, And if I'm able to do that with forward contracts, whether it's futures contracts on the conventional side or some sort of production or acreage contract on the organic side, I'm personally, I'm really trying to take those and be happy with what I have and what, the birds I can have in my hand instead of all the ones in the bush. So for us with some of our seed grade production and some of our specialty crop production, there are sort of floating prices that kind of trend around the same, in and out every year. And this is definitely one of those years where perhaps just growing, dark hilum feed grade soybeans might be more dollars per acre, but I still have, clear hilum food grade customers that I want to service and want to honor and want to make sure that, they have what they need, because if this turns around and we find ourselves back in the mid to low 20s or below or on bean prices, I want to make sure that I establish those or have, kept those relationships and have, sort of not throwing everything out of the window now that stuff's just kind of gone crazy, because it'll correct. I mean, it always does. I don't know if it'll be this year. I don't know if it'll be next year. I don't know if it'll be in a decade from now, but it always, it ebbs and flows. And that's kind of where I'm always trying to keep my head.
So there's a question for you, Willie, from Jeff. Do you have the impression that most organic producers contract? Or is
Yeah, I see. Do you think, I would probably say no. It's hard because that's not typically something that, when I'm talking with other organic growers and stuff, we're usually bitching about like other things and, talking about equipment and techniques. And so I don't really, in general, inquire about other growers' contracts. And I try not to, that's just everybody's kind of personal, that's their business. But I would say that a lot of the growers that I know who are kind of what I would say maybe taking their marketing approach, a step beyond some sort of value add, whether it's a milling contract or a food grade contract or a seed grade contract or, some sort of thing beyond the feed market. I would think that, yes, they do a significant amount forward contracted. But there's plenty of folks who are, corn and alfalfa or corn and beans and alfalfa. And, this is one of those years where they might just make a lot more money and have a lot less work. So I can't fault them this year for having that marketing approach either. So it's tough for me to say, I guess.
Yeah, I saw you also had a question about how much higher the non-GMO is than the regular stuff. And just from stuff that we've worked with, I mean, for non-GMO corn, at least just for regular yellow corn, we've really seen anything from like a 10 to 15 cent premium that you're going to be running on over the board for the non-GMO corn. For the beans, and you can get stuff as high as like $2 over the board for some of the premiums for non-GMO beans, just depending on what variety you're growing is. So
and that's over board price. So if your local
Yep.
elevator has basis, then you figure that into. But
yeah,
and then there's also you got generally cheaper seed, and you just don't need to deal with all that stuff. So yeah.
Matt, where are you seeing trends going with non-GMO? There's a question of related to demand.
yeah, I think from what we've seen, I mean, we've at least for the DeLong company too, I mean, they've been sourcing a lot more GMOs in the past few years, or non-GMOs in the past few years, excuse me. And this we're getting more non-GMO acres enrolled in the program as well. And just based on what we're seeing consumers want in in their foods and stuff like that too. the demand for it is increasing. We've been sourcing some higher volumes here, and just, going forward, just the general trend is, we've been seeing a little more demand, and also just some more supply in general too. It's been easier to find. So I'd say that, the demand has been increasing, over the past couple of years here.
All right, I think that I've cut up for questions. Matt, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about the platform and
Yeah, so I can get into that. So I know, I'm sure you heard Willie talk a little bit about using our platform for price discovery and stuff like that. So one of the things that we wanted to do with this was just help with price discovery and transparency in the organic market, just to make it easier to find more consistent pricing for your grain, and just make it more, just connect the organic market more overall, make it more efficient, make it easier to find people to do business with. Here, I can share my screen here to show it actually. So, all right, everyone see that? Okay, but yeah, so this is the site. Generally what, like I was saying, what we wanted, the ultimate goal here is to make it easier for people just to see what things are trading at for, doing, from day to day, instead of having to call around and, you end up getting 3 different bids in 3 different ballparks for, your corn or beans or oats or wheat or whatever you have in the same day. And so, one of the things that we also wanted to make this as, grower friendly as possible. So, it is free to get on the site. So, you don't even need an account also to check out what the prices are doing. So even if you just wanted to keep an eye on the market, see what things are doing and trading at for the day, you're able to come on here and do that as well. But, the fees for using the site, the buyers are always the one that are going to be paying the fees if anything sells on the site. So we wanted to make this as grower friendly as possible. The only time the growers that you would be paying anything is if it went unsold. Your listing went unsold, so there'd be a 5 cent per bushel commission fee for anything that you list if it went unsold. And what kind of volumes are being moved through here? Yeah, so good question. So far, we have had 2,000 tons of soybean meal traded through the site. We've had roughly 15,000 bushels of food corn moved through here. I know, Willie, you sold some white sorghum through here. I believe it was something like 750 bushels, 900 bushels, something like that.
Yep.
And so we've had that. We've also had, I know we've also had some oats move through the site. We've had a few loads of oats, so probably about, I would say about 3,000 bushels of oats, roughly, maybe 4,500 bushels. And then we've also had some millet go through here recently too. So we're probably looking about, it was about 3,000 bushels of millet. So we just started this past September, still relatively new. We're still building out the user base, building out the site. So slowly getting some more volume through, but that's kind of what we've been seeing so far right now. I know whenever you're kind of going through here too, on the main page, it'll show you just kind of some basic information about what you can see on each listing. And whenever you go into it, you'll be able to get some more detailed information. So you'll kind of have stuff that you can see where you'll have the delivery period they're looking for. So if you were interested in using it to market any new crop or anything like that, or even just test out the site, that's an option to do it as well. So you can set your delivery period, all the grade factors as well. You also have a description box if there's anything that's included and not included in this information that you would want people to know about. So this one's a reverse auction here. So this would be someone that's looking to buy these beans. So they'll have their delivery address set. They'll have their unloading availability, estimated unloading time as well. And, for these companies here, I can show you one of the long auctions that are up. So for the companies here too, you will be able to see the discount schedules that they have uploaded to their accounts and to the auction. So you'll be able to see what their discount schedules are. You'll have an idea of, you know, what that's going to be. So you'll be able to see that right on the site here. The question, this seems like a great idea for price discovery. Why do you think it wasn't more widely used, or that hasn't been done before? So in terms of why it hasn't been done before, I mean, I think it's just a new idea, you know, it's still a relatively new idea. You know, the organic market, just the volume that's moved through the organic market compared to the conventional market is just so much lower. So it's, you know, it was hard to do at the beginning. I feel like, you know, now as it's growing more and you're starting to get some more volume through, it'll be more helpful to kind of connect people and get some more price discovery. In terms of why it hasn't been widely used, I think that just whenever we were starting out, I mean, people just didn't know, you know, what it was, or, you know, who we were. And so I think that the whole trust issue was there too. Just, you know, it was a completely new thing, hasn't really been done before, and people just, you know, they just don't know. You just don't know the company. You just never worked with them before. You don't know anything about them. So I think there's just that little bit of hesitation to, you know, get on and use it.
Are there minimum volumes that are required?
Nope. So there are no minimum volumes. So you can list as much or as little as you want. Generally, just any tips that will give some people that list auctions, or if you just list it, you know, generally around at least a truckload, to make it more attractive for people that are going to be buying, just to make it easier instead of having to try and match up 2 half loads, or, you know, or anything less than that. So there are no minimums or maximums to list on the site. But I know, yeah, just kind of going through too, that is the thing. I know we have had some questions about, you know, how are we going to like mitigate some, you know, how are we going to get paid? How are we going to work out all of that kind of those issues? And so one of the things that we're doing is for all of the buyers that we have that register on the site, you know, we're doing a credit check on them. So we are doing some due diligence on our end to try and get some, you know, reputable buyers on, and to, you know, make sure, you know, or at least trying to reduce the risk as much as possible in terms of defaults on payment and stuff like that. So we are doing some due diligence to try and mitigate some of that risk. Unfortunately, we can't get rid of it all. That would be nice if we could, but you know, we can't guarantee payments, and, you know, we're not a clearinghouse or anything like that. So and in terms of working out payments and creating contracts and stuff like that, that'll all be between, you know, the buyer and the seller once the auction goes through. If it's somebody bids on it and wins it, you know, that'll be all off the platform. We don't play any part in that. But, you know, so the buyers on the site, I was saying that they're the ones that pay the commission fees as stuff sells. So, you know, they're the ones paying a flat 10-cent per bushel commission fee. We're, you know, the sellers, if you're offering on a reverse auction, or a buyer bids on your traditional auction and wins it, you know, the buyer's the one paying the fee there. So it's not gonna be any cost to, you know, the growers for using the site.
And Matt, maybe you could just touch a little bit on why the 5 cent per bushel fee if your product doesn't sell. What's the thought behind that?
Yeah, good question. So the reason why we put that in there is because we wanted to encourage realistic prices on the site. You know, we didn't want people to come on here and, you know, list up some organic corn for $50 a bushel. You know, we wanted to encourage those realistic prices, but not scare people off from listing anything. So, if you list up, say 1,000 bushels, and you only doesn't sell, you're only out 5 cents a bushel. So it's not anything crazy, but that was the reason why we wanted that on there. And for the traditional auctions that you're listing as well, you'll set a reserve price on it, so it has a floor of what it can sell at. So you can't, so you won't just list it and say the bids only get up to $3. It's not like it'll go through. You'll have a floor of what everything can sell at too. So we have that protection in place.
And if you don't want to use the auction style, you can just have a buy it now price, correct? So you could just list something for a price and take the auction angle out of it, correct?
Yep, that's correct. So there is that option to, I can show it here as well. So there is an option whenever you get on here to just do it as a just as listing, not as an auction. So if you have a price that you wanted to sell it at, if you wanted to sell your organic corn at $12, then you can just set that there. You don't even need to do it as an auction. It will just be, it'll just set as a flat price. And one of the things too that we're also doing to help out the growers is whenever you go to create an account and go to list any product up on the site, you'll see a list of the current buyers. And so you'll be able to select which ones are able to bid on your auctions. And it'll also have links to their discount schedules next to their names. So, if you don't like their discount schedules, don't know them, have had a bad experience with them, anything like that in the past, you can unselect them. They won't be able to bid on your auctions. You'll have more control over who can do all that. So do you think the demand and price for non-GMO crops could help transitioning organic farmers? I definitely, yeah, I think that, that transition period from conventional to organic is definitely challenging. And I think that, the non-GMO premium will help make it more worthwhile to make that transition, and encourage some more people to move to organic if those premiums and incentives are there. I don't know, Will, if you have any input on that too.
Do you think the demand and price for non-GMO could help transition organic farmers? I think that you might as well, I guess would be my answer. I mean, if you're obviously not permitted in the transitional period to use any sort of traded seed. So you're using, conventional non-GMO seed. And so as long as you have access to that market and the logistics are not cost prohibitive to get it to a non-GMO market, yes, absolutely. And I would also just say, kind of a plug for that, when what also helps probably transitioning organic farmers is just relatively higher conventional commodity prices. I think I might have told this at another Zoom meeting a couple of weeks ago, but we had some ground that we transitioned. This year will be our first year certified organic. And last summer we had we had transitional wheat, and I think our cash price for our wheat was like $5.36 or something like that, per bushel, which we thought was good. Or was better. We thought we thought that was a price that we should jump and take. It just goes to show, you don't know where things are going, but also, had I, right now, I guess had wheat prices been where they're at now, it would have really made that transitional process a lot more palatable. So I know that, when prices are relatively high on the conventional side, maybe the conventional wisdom is, why would I go through the steps of the value add and the certification and all the heartache and work of organics when I can just make money growing, number 2 corn. But I would argue that it's completely opposite, that this would be a time where taking a little more risk and pushing your boundaries and frankly, farming without the protections of chemicals and the high inputs of that are there, it might be a perfect time to do that, so that when we go back to a correction or back to a downturn, you'll have some safe haven, hopefully, in a value added market like certified organic. So.
I know Willie, how Harriet Behar used to say the same thing, that it's often when conventional grain prices are down, that people are motivated to explore transition. But really, like you're saying, it's the opposite, that when conventional grain prices are up, that's really in terms of financing transition is the more logical, I guess, timing to do it, which may seem counterintuitive on the surface, but it is going to be able to cash flow better through the transition.
And just anecdotally, to put kind of a fine point or a final point on it, when conventional corn was $3, the neighbors will ask, hey, what's that organic blue corn going for? Or what are you doing? Where does that, where do those organic beans, where do you take those? And, they're just doing their due diligence and poking around and looking for a way to add value. And I don't get any of those questions right now. Nobody's asking, nobody cares, because frankly, they don't need to care. So.
All right. Yeah, I guess.
Matt, maybe one thing you could touch on that I don't think you covered was the newsletter. I mean, for me personally, I've only had one experience with the website. It was pretty good, but we should both probably be pretty transparent that I was kind of like a beta tester for them, and so it's pretty low stakes for me to get on. But I'm thinking as a grower myself of using the platform more. I like the price discovery. I hope to see, more volume go through it. And I think that, we're just in an early stage where, we haven't seen it. But one of the things I also really liked, and I think kind of avoid that OCE is filled, at least in my inbox for my mail, was the price discovery newsletters and stuff. I used to get those from Pipeline, and that kind of went away. So maybe you just want to give a plug for the weekly newsletter that you give and what kind of information you're putting on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the weekly newsletter we send out Tuesday, Thursday every week. We just include some stuff. So we'll include prices that we're seeing on the site, prices that the USDA publishes in their reports, also Canadian prices as well. So we include those. We'll include some headlines with any news that's going on in the organic markets. Also just some other general and any kind of news related to agriculture in general. I mean, we include some of those headlines in there. We'll include auction spotlights for anything new that comes up onto the site. So we'll include those on there as well. We'll also include some information about the weather across the country, stuff like that. We also just have some trivia questions on there and stuff like that to keep people engaged. So that's kind of some of the stuff that we include on the newsletter. Says someone has a question here too. It says Willie talked about sunflowers as an alternative to soybeans. You talk about finding markets and sourcing transportation and storage.
Yeah, sure. So sunflowers, are a broadleaf, and in the rotation, if you're looking at kind of, not doing too much grass on grass or doing too much, broadleaf after broadleaf for disease management and, all the rotational benefits. If you're looking at a traditional corn, bean, wheat rotation, and that's where you start, you can pretty easily start to diversify or get a more multiplied effect if you begin to substitute soybeans for sunflowers, or even something as simple as wheat for rye and sorghum for corn, and there's vegetable crops, and that's kind of the game that I play, is just to look at that basic corn, bean, wheat rotation, and then how can I kind of put a little spin on it. So for us, sunflowers were something that we've been doing for, gosh, I don't know if it's been 10 years now, but it's certainly been, 7 or 8 years. In terms of markets, I think that you can pretty easily, go online, find out who's selling certified organic oil in your area, contact them. There's a lot of great, hopefully, you could use something like the OCE. There's a lot of sunflower users out there. We've got 2 or 3 customers that we service, anywhere from, small family, cold extruders to, larger, the larger Purdue's and other, some big oil users of the world. And in terms of, what was the rest of the question, the sourcing, transportation, and storage. So for us, that's just on farm. We've got trucks and local buyers. Storage is kind of a goofy thing with us. We don't have too much on farm storage, but in some cases our buyers could take it. We've rented storage in some cases, and we do have some limited storage that we do. They're typically, fairly dry. The only thing you really need to be careful with sunflowers is if you try to dry them yourselves, being the high oil content. You don't want to use any sort of open flame or, any sort of direct heat to the seed, unless you really know what you're doing. But other than that, it's just like any other crop, you just have to go out and find a buyer and find the specs and meet them. Some of the problems you can run into with some of these speculative markets is if you promise a certain quality or a certain quantity to a buyer, and then you have more than they can take, or your stuff doesn't meet the quality, then you can get left kind of holding the bag. And so that those would be concerns of mine. But I would, to Susan's question, I would just encourage her to, to go online and start looking at, where, cold press extruders, organic sunflower oil in my area, just start kind of sleuthing online and seeing I don't know where she is in the world, but if there's a local, producer that would be willing to do it. And for us, the sunflowers are that's one of the crops that typically we would go into the spring with like an acreage or a production contract. We've done some double crop sunflowers after wheat, which we had some like mixed success with, just because the oil content was a little disappointing. But for the most part, we try to have that stuff kind of a home identified for that before we go into harvest. It also takes a little bit specialized of a head. We had a John Deere all crop head that we kind of borrowed from a neighbor that we harvest all our sunflowers with. So typical corn head is not ideal for that. And you can use a platform head or like a draper head that works okay. But you're then taking in a lot more material and stuff through the combine. Okay, what extra? I see Bruce asked that question. So yeah, it was a John Deere all crop head, but you could use, other than that, it was, we've got, we bought some sunflower plates for our precision meters on our planter, 30-inch rows, about 24,000 population. So not, just a soybean plate or, a sunflower plate, and the knockout wheels and stuff. And then an all crop head, John Deere all crop head. So that's it in terms of the sunflowers, and they're fairly good at weed suppression. So they're I would say more competitive. They canopy quicker than soybeans, so that's why we like them too. But they get tall, so we can't use our weed zapper. So it just is, you kind of have to pick and choose your field. They do not compete well with ragweeds, but they'll do really well against shorter crops, foxtail, things like that. So
Another sunflower question, and we're like I said, we're lining them up to grow at Arlington this year. We're having some of the same questions about about how we're going to combine them and what we need to think about.
Yeah, and all crop head, and they're the They're a little, they use a little bit of nitrogen, so it's not a total substitution for your soybean crop, like from a management standpoint. But for us, we found that we were kind of our target yield was about maybe 2,000 pounds an acre. We would consider like a good yield. We've gone as low as maybe 1,500 and as high as about 2,500. So that's kind of the window that we're in southern Wisconsin. And they do good on poor soils. They seem to, do fine in sand, which we have some of that. They're a good scavenger crop. They've got a tremendous taproot. They're beautiful, that when they bloom, it's a show for the whole community. You
I was
will get,
talking to someone for the agronomist from Purdue about what we need to think about. And he said the biggest pests are people.
yeah,
Fields,
right.
not
No,
insects, but people.
yeah. I mean, folks just think it's a public park. It's like I mean, it's like an Instagram influencer honey hole. They're just people snapping selfies like mad. I mean, we had to actually, the first year we did it, we had to start directing traffic and like cordoning off areas on our farm. It was like, this is private property. Like, please, leave. But it only lasts for a couple weeks and then they get ugly again, and no one bothers. But that comes with the territory. So if you do sunflowers and if you're very against, visitors and attention, or, you just don't want to deal with that, or if you're on a really busy road, think about that, because it's a traffic, it's a liability, I guess is what I would call it. I mean, it's something you should consider. So sometimes we'll put them kind of in the back 40 acres of a farm or something like that, just because it just makes things easier. So anyway.
Do you see this question that Bruce had too about, can you take sunflowers straight from the combine to a truck, or do you have to put them in a bin?
Yeah, we've put them straight in a truck. I mean, when, the issues, there's some issues you can get, the heads will drop and the back head will collect moisture and get kind of spongy. It almost works like a little bird bath. Once the head drops, and so in the right year, you can get some of this kind of wet, spongy, honeycomb type, the back of the head where the seeds are in. I don't know the name of it, but it's kind of this mushy stuff. And so if you have a real hard time getting that out with your combine, you might want to run it, through like a rotary screener. They're typically, real big chunks. They look like honeycomb. And so we ran it through like a rotary grain screener to clean out some of that, and stems too. And you'll have more of that if you'd use like a draper head or a platform, head. I see Mark recommended the sunflower pans. I don't have much experience with those, but that's an option too. I know of several people who have looked at sunflowers and looked at the pans and stuff, and I can't speak to it, but the all crop heads, which are basically the gathering chains, are like these rubber belts that come in and grab the flower by the stalk and bring it in. And so you don't have some of the shattering or some of the pulling, that you would with like a corn head. So you're able to kind of, it's a good way to do it. That's the only way we've done it. So that's the only experience I've got. But I think I would say in general, your best bet is to harvest the flowers, put them in a bin and get air on them. That would be, if you're, I guess when I think about it, our buyers are, if we're putting it in a truck and delivering it straight to our buyer, that's what they're doing, is they're putting it on a full floor, bin with air. And again, if anyone joined late, don't put heat to your sunflowers in a bin unless you really know what you're doing, because they have the high oil content can really be a liability.
we'll hopefully have at least our opportunity at Arlington to visit sunflowers and talk more about it, and maybe at some of our field days this summer.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, the pollinators really show up. We had of course beekeepers stop by and ask to keep their hives near. And I mean, it's amazing. It kind of looks like when it blooms, just the activity you see with all of the insects just going around. It's like one of those scenes in Star Wars where you look at those huge mega cities and there's all these like flying cars everywhere. I mean, it's just insects, biomass everywhere. And it's really cool. It's really special. A couple other things, I'll just touch on sunflowers because I got started on it. So I have to say a couple other things. I've been told that you want to plant them north to south, your rows, predominant rows going north to south and not east to west, because the flowers will be facing east to capture the rising sun. And if your rows are going east to west, basically the crook of the neck for the flower in front of, like, you have a sunflower and it's pointed east, but the crook of the neck for the flower in front of it makes a perfect perch for a bird. And so if they're north to south, there's not like a direct access to the head and a perch for birds. So definitely, we see, flocks of like starlings and all sorts of birds and stuff really come and peck away. And I mean, you can it's like a Alfred Hitchcock movie, you can hear them out there in the fields, like kind of, they love it too. And that's, arguably a good or a bad thing, but that's kind of a anecdotal, like old wives' tale that I've been told is always plant them to north to south. So, and that's all I know about sunflowers.
You know a lot more than a lot of us, Willie. Any other questions? Or just to go back to the organic crop exchange, as we bring on people, O'Grain certainly supports all of our partners, and it's not endorsing any one mechanism over the other, but just really wanting to get information out as to what are the options for organic farmers. And marketing is one of the toughest aspects of getting into organic farming. And it's great to see more mechanisms and avenues and platforms for not only marketing, but price discovery. But there's definitely different ways to go about it, looking at marketing and through mechanisms like O-Farm or direct marketing. But I think the more avenues we have to access markets, the better off we are in the organic farming community.
Yeah, and I again would like to just kind of say that I really like the OCE exchange. I think there's potential, and I think it's interesting to me that it's a platform released by the DeLong company, but you can go on it and you can see who the buyer is, and there's really nothing stopping you from these would be people that arguably DeLong's would buy your grain from, and then they would call them and they would make this sale. So I think it's kind of amicable that they're doing this kind of interesting thing in a transparent way. I mean, I'm kind of just fascinated to see where it's going to go, and I like that there's no it seems to be fairly grower friendly. There's low obligation or low there's a low bar for a grower's exposure or low amount of grower exposure. And I like to just kind of sleuth on the site and see what's happening, and I'm watching to see hoping that bids will start going up, and the more bids and the more traffic it gets, I think just the more relevant the information will be. So I'm kind of taking it all with a grain of salt today, and then maybe tomorrow it'll be a few less grains of salt, and I'll be like kind of following it and reacting to the information more and more. And in a couple of years, maybe this is how the future of a fair sizable amount of transactions will go. We don't really know, but it's kind of cool to see. So
right, any last thoughts, Matt?
Yes, I think we hit on all the main points, and I appreciate, Willie, I appreciate talking a little bit about it. I know it was only one time, but you also did give us some feedback whenever we were developing it too, so we appreciate that. And I think that going forward, we'll kind of really see where this goes, and we'll kind of see, probably by the end of this year, next year, what's really going to go on with this. So we'll kind of work on getting some more volume to the site, and hopefully provide some more and some more relevant and better information for everybody. And hopefully be able to use this site as to be able to get some more accurate prices for any commodities that you're selling. So that's kind of what we'll be ultimately working towards.
All right. Well, if there's no last questions, we're just about at the hour. So well, thank you both, Matt and Willie, and thank you all for attending. And we'll post this on the website as well as the last few webinars. I'm a little bit behind on that, and also post a link to the Organic Crop Exchange and that subscribe link that allows you to get access to the newsletter, which I am going to do. That sounds like a great resource. All right, well, have a great weekend, everyone. And we have one last webinar next week on organic crop insurance, and then look out for our field days this summer. We have some great field days shaping up. So see y'all later. Bye.